it's just a moment that you really don't want to be part of. But we were part of it last night. But thank God everybody was good and safe.
Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carbett, your host, and with me today is none other than Mr. Brandon No Way. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good, Mark. How about you?
A little scared these days, brother. I was glad to see some courageous actions taken by some people last week, but it did give me a little hesitancy. I know that piece we just played at the beginning with Fernando Tatis Jr. Yeah, that was a surprise for everybody. I don't think anybody ever expected something like that. I'm talking about the shooting that took place at Nationals Park while the Padres were playing the Nationals this past weekend.
That seems like just such a scary situation to be in, because I did see the video of it, and I mean, I wouldn't have thought it was gunshots because it doesn't sound like what you think would be. You don't hear like a popping or the gun sounds you hear in the movie. It didn't really sound like anything. I wouldn't know what I think it was. And then you wouldn't know if is it outside the stadium? Is it inside? Because in this day and age, there's so many crazy people out there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be surprising if somebody did have a gun inside the stadium. Now, thank God they didn't, but it's unfortunate and sad that we have to think about something like that.
You consider the ugliness where that stuff comes from. And we have seen gun violence in schools. I'm thinking of gatherings of people, too. We've seen gun shootings in malls or grocery stores. We've seen it comes down to wherever you're at, you cannot feel completely safe. The ballpark is one place. It's complete escapism. But they, just like every other business, they being the teams and the stadium owners, have to have some sort of, you would presume, some sort of plan in place. I mean, we teach the kids in school, there's shooter drills of all things. I'm sure they call it something much more effective or reasonable than that.
I'm not sure what they call it. I've missed out on those drills, thankfully, but my sister said they had to do them like at least once every semester or quarter. They would do that, and it's like, how sad is that you have to practice for an active shooter? And then now the school that I went to and that she went to, it looks like a prison now because there are so many fences around it. When I was there, you could just like walk right in, no problem. Now there's like a whole fence, like a prison yard almost.
Yeah. I mean, you've got scanners and everything else. I mean, and they got scanners in the ball fields when you walk in. But when you have to think of, like you said, your sister's school, a place that I don't know, it has to become a part of the atmosphere. The preparations for somebody being crazy and having a gun and doing something stupid with it. So, in this case, what it was, for those of you who did not see what's happening here, it was at the Nationals Park. They're playing the Padres. It's about 6.5 innings into the game. Tingler's walking out to talk to the umps about, hey, here's some changes in the lineup I'm talking about for the next inning here. Okay, all right. Hey, what was that sound? The ump says, I don't know. Neither one of them knew. They knew something. Something tingled in the back of their head there. Something said, that ain't right. And people start reacting. What's happening? Where's it going? Suddenly the PA system comes up and people are being, warned that there's an active shooter outside of the stadium. Swiftly, you see some of these players, they come up and they scoop up family, fans, and start trying to get them to take cover in the dugouts. A very limited amount of space there. You see other folks running to get out completely, I guess, out of the stadium, and certainly out of the field. And others stopping and ducking. It's got to be a very insane moment. And at one point, the PA announcer tells people to stay in the stadium. But at another point, I hear him say, however, you can exit through center field exit. And I thought, that doesn't sound right. But I wasn't there. And I hope they had a good shooter plan. The good news, well, for such a thing, I mean, people within inside the stadium, I think, were all safe. One poor lady was out getting an Uber, and she got shot, and a couple other people got shot. I don't know the status of everybody there, but it's a terrible situation.
Yeah, from what I saw, they were just injured. I didn't see anybody killed, thankfully, at the time of recording. And I want to believe that they would have, given them the all clear to let people go out. The police were out there investigating, so I'm sure they gave them like an all clear to let people out. I mean, I wouldn't want to go out into the area where the shooting was, but no. I'm sure they did a good job of making sure everybody was safe. And, it was nice to see that there still is some good out there with Tatis, Machado, and I believe it was Myers as well, trying to help as many people as they could, get to cover, whether it be behind the seats or even in the dugout.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And it goes to the nature of these players. It's so easy to just recognize them as great talent and entertainers on the field, but it's even more so when you see them step out of that traditional role and do something directly to impact a fan's life and safety in this case, putting their lives, meaning the fans' lives, above their own. We want to do things to make sure they're doing fine. By the way, let's go ahead and play this bit here from Jayce Tingler talking about how he felt about his team.
I just can't say how honored and proud I am to be with the group of players and staff that I get to work with day in, day out. Most people see them as baseball players, and when you get to see them as caring human beings, doing the right thing, loving husbands and sons and fathers, I'm honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, that was Jayce, and you can hear how emotional he was about it, about his own team. I mean, a lot of those pauses, I think, were it wasn't that he didn't have the words, but I think he was just so emotionally wrapped up to it, and it looked like he was coming to tears, as well you might imagine, being so proud of his team and what they did.
And I don't blame him for being emotional. I mean, I know you'd already be attached to your teammates, your players, and your coaching staff already enough as it is, but to go through a situation like that, granted it could have been much, much worse, thankfully it wasn't, to see how they reacted trying to help people, I don't blame them for being emotional, because that shows that, that they really are good people.
Right, and the good news, like you said, everybody, mostly are safe. Some people were hurt, some people were shot, and as I said, as time of this recording, that's all that we know. So God bless all those people, and and the integrity and the strength of those players and others, security to do what they did. It's amazing. Well, if we actually look at what was going on, like I said, that was 6.5 innings into that. I'm trying to find something here. All right, what I want to do, I want to take a moment here to look at what actually happened in the series. Did they actually have a series? Let's see. Which day was it? It was Saturday, wasn't it?
Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. I mean, they actually went ahead and completed their series, the Padres and the Nationals, when playing there so it wound up being 3 games, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My gosh, Friday, Padres took it to them 24-8. And then, yeah.
That must not have been a very pretty game.
No.
If I didn't know better, I would have thought it was a Chargers Washington football team game.
Yeah. That sounds like a score for that. Then Friday being partial game, 10-4, Padres again. But evidently Sunday, the Nationals tried to come back and had a win 8-7. So that was interesting to see how that played out. Hey, Brandon, we want to take a look here together at what's going on with the standings.
Oh, yeah, sure. So let's start in the AL East, like we usually do. But Red Sox, they still lead that division a half a game over the Rays. Red Sox have been struggling a little bit. They've gone 4-6, of course, coming off of that series loss to the Yankees, who are now World Series contenders yet again, according to some people. And the Rays have gone 8-2 in their last 10 games, only a half a game back. The AL Central, the White Sox have a pretty good lead in that division, 8 games ahead of the Indians, who will be the future Guardians coming up, I believe, next year. So that's a pretty cool name.
I was looking for the Spiders, man. I was really hoping Cleveland was going to go with the Spiders, but that's okay.
Yeah, that would have been a cool name, but Guardians sounds really cool. It's unique.
So the Cleveland Guardians, and then we got what, the Tigers?
Yeah, the Tigers are 14 games back, Twins 17, Royals 19.
Wow.
And some people I've heard are actually saying that the Tigers could get really hot here and maybe make a push for a wild card. I don't really buy into that, but hey, they could make a push. They do play a really weak schedule.
I'm trying to look here too, real quickly. I'm jumping back to, let's see, who else is in that? Was it the Royals?
Yes, the Royals.
Okay, so they played the Orioles. They played the Orioles Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and the Orioles took them to I won't say took them to the woodshed, but they beat them the last 2 games. They took 2 out of 3 of the series. Go Orioles.
Hey, don't say Orioles too much. They might get back into the AL East race.
Oh, that'd be a bit of work. Yeah. So what else we got, brother?
In the AL West, the Astros still lead that division 56-38, 3.5 ahead of the A's, 6 ahead of the Mariners, 9 ahead of the Angels, and 20.5 ahead of the Rangers.
You know what's interesting, too, in the AL West, 4 of the teams are above 500. Angels are just barely there, 46 wins, 46 losses. But it's, and I know looking back at the White Sox, talking about just a moment ago with AL Central, White Sox, a lot of people are looking for something big with them. They've got the 609 percentage. Wow. Anyway.
And the White Sox are doing that with injuries, and I believe they haven't lost a series since the beginning of July, and that was actually against the Tigers. So wow. They seem to be going pretty good. All right, since we are now done with the AL, we'll now head back east to the National League. The Mets lead the East 2 games ahead of the Phillies, 4 ahead of the Braves, coming off a series loss to the Rays, but that was a pretty good series to watch outside of Saturday if you're a Rays fan. Washington is 6 games back, and the Marlins 9.5 back.
You know what's interesting? I mean, we hold the Mets with such high praise, and Steve Cohen put some money to that team. Curious to see what if any other changes might happen there. But let's see. Since Friday, July 9th, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that right? 7 games. And so that was Pirates and the Mets playing 7 games. They played 4 at the Mets and 3 at the Pirates. And the Pirates took how many of those? Let's see. 1, 2, I'm a slow counter. 3, 4. No, 4. Was it 4? 4 out of 7? Yeah. Wow. So 4 out of 6. Man, now that's a little scary. I mean, the Mets being up so high and Pirates really kind of suffering.
Yeah, but the Mets. Oh, sorry.
No, I'll say we'll talk about the Pirates later because there were some interesting things that happened with them this weekend too.
Yeah, the Mets, they had a bit of a rough weekend too because, I mean, they lost Lindor to an injury, and now DeGrom is going back on the IL with the forearm tightness. So who knows what that can do to them?
Yeah, that could be some ugliness.
It could be. But now that we are done with the East, we'll head back to the Central.
I'm going to hit you one more thing with the East. The Braves. Now, you know, when we're looking at them, let's see, they did make one trade, right? They brought one guy on. They brought on Jock Peterson from the Cubs.
Oh, yeah, he had a field day this weekend.
Yeah, the first day they brought him in up against the Rays, and they brought him into the last inning up to bat. It didn't matter. The Rays won that one, but the next day he was very much a contributor. He and Mr. Freeman. My gosh, I always enjoy watching them guys. I don't like them beating the Rays, but I love watching the Braves. I'm sorry I digress, but I did want to mention that. We'll do more talking about the changes with some of the trades on the next show. Yeah, and so now that I've bumped into your time frame again, let's move on to NL Central.
No, don't worry about that. In the Central, the Brew Crew, they lead that division 7 games ahead of the Reds, 9 ahead of the Cubs and Cardinals, who are tied for third. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates, despite having the hot weekend against the Mets, are still 19 games back. So that wasn't enough to close in on the division lead.
Yeah.
And lastly, to close out the rundown, in the NL West, the Giants still lead the West 1 game ahead of the Dodgers, 5 ahead of the Padres, 18 ahead of the Rockies, and an astounding 32.5 ahead of the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, so man, are the Diamondbacks? I think they're struggling more than anybody.
Yeah, there are people saying that they could challenge for the worst record in the history of baseball, which that says something. And it's pretty bad where if the division leader can lose all their games in a month and you can win all your games in a month and still be a half a game out of first.
Ouch.
Even or more.
Well, that's a tough rundown, brother, about what's happening in the standings. So let's move on. Maybe we'll come back to the Pirates in a bit here. Okay. One thing I want to interrupt here a bit with, too, and this is much broader. It's a couple of things. One, we had the All-Star game last week. And interestingly enough, in the wisdom of, I guess, ESPN or MLB and advertisers everywhere, they wanted to make sure we had a baseball game almost immediately after the All-Star game. And then for those of you who may have remembered, with the All-Star game is actually supposed to be about giving people a break, giving them a rest. How about 1 day? So you play the All-Star game on Tuesday and Thursday. You get to play the Yankees. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 Boston Red Sox in All-Star game, and they're going to have to play, with 1 day break between that and the All-Star game. But they complained a little bit about it. It really wasn't an issue that 1 day because, bam, COVID came in and kicked it.
Yeah, that's not really the way you want to lose a game to COVID. You'd rather it be like weather or something, but I'm sure they would take that day off, but they ended up getting it anyways.
Yeah, and, so it was wound up being the Yankees, and the Yankees had like 6 different people, and I think most of them were players who actually had COVID. And remember, everybody, mask and make sure you get your vaccination. But the thing of it is about vaccination, too, is to remember that a person can still get COVID, after having vaccination. It's just generally the symptoms are not as bad. And so that being my limited understanding. And, hey, did you see, was it Rich Eisen, right?
Yes.
He got COVID again. He had vaccination. He was out for like about 5 days. But he was encouraging people still to get vaccination because, just like we were saying a second ago, it could have been much worse. That's what the doctors told him. I'm glad he'll be back soon. So, Rich, welcome. And Yankees, I hope you guys are on the mend. But the COVID only kicked the game out for 1 day, and the Yankees then continued to play on with the Red Sox, but missing Judge and a couple of other players who did have COVID.
Yeah, and they really didn't skip a beat at all. They looked really good, even though they dropped the first game. They did wind up winning the series, the next 2 games, to take that series against the Red Sox, and that really kicked into overdrive. Will the Yankees be buyers at the deadlines? Will they make a push for the World Series this year?
Everybody's waiting to see what Cashman's going to do. Is he going to open up a little more? Is he going to be replacing people? Is Giancarlo going to be gone? I don't know. We talked about Jock Peterson earlier being moved from the Cubs and going on to the Braves. And I was reading something earlier today saying that who knows, they might move him again. Who knows? I don't know.
I heard last night, I believe it was Buster Olney talking about it on Sunday Night Baseball, that if the Yankees decide to be sellers at the deadline, watch for them to possibly move Aaron Judge because he's a free agent after next season. So that was something that caught my eye. And really, do you want to trade for him and take that risk of paying the big contract and, his history with injuries?
Yeah, that's a good one because the history of injuries, I think, is going to be a major consideration. But while you were talking about moving somebody just before free agency, that's what the Red Sox did with Mookie Betts, right? I mean, he became a Dodger before he became a free agent.
Yeah, I believe they sort of did like where they traded him and then they had that big contract waiting for him when he got to L.A. and he ended up signing and winning a World Series with them.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Like I said, so all these changes can be made. Who knows where Aaron Judge or anybody else will wind up? We'll try to keep you guys up to date with that as it happens. And one last thing I want to say about the Yankees. Well, no, one last thing. Another thing I want to say about the Yankees is, of course, what happened at that game the other day. And I'm talking about a fan throwing a ball from in the stands at Boston Red Sox outfielder Alex Verdugo. Hit him right in the back. Bam. And the basis of what happened prior to that throw goes something like this. Alex Verdugo, as the Boston Red Sox, and when he's there at the Yankee Stadium, he interacts with some of the fans. Those who are out there shouting, giving him grief, and he's lightheartedly, making remarks back and forth. And one of the things that he does too, like a lot of players, is he shares a ball with the folks up in the stands. He said, Alex Verdugo said, while he was out there, he threw one up to try to get it to an area where a young Red Sox fan was. So as people are still saying remarks back and forth, as he starts to turn his back, a guy throws a ball, bam, hits him right in the middle of the back. Woof. That kind of insanity does not belong anywhere in life, much less in a ball game. And, my first thought is, what the hell happened and what kind of action is going to be taken?
I saw a video. It was taken in the area, actually right next to the guy that threw it. And the dude was like shaking because he was scared that he got caught. And people were pointing at him, ratting him out. And security just came in and took him away. And he got a pretty big penalty for that too. Well deserved.
Yeah, the teeth really sunk in on that. What'd they give him? A C? Oh, I'm sorry, you can't come to the next game. And you can't come to the game after that and after that and after that. And we're not just talking Yankee Stadium. You are banned from entering any of the 30 Major League Baseball teams' stadiums for life. You're gone. Can't come back. That seemed reasonable. I mean, think about this. If I was just walked down the street, and I had a baseball, and there's somebody walking down the street, and I took it and I threw it, and I threw him and hit him in the back, I think they could probably call and at least charge me with assault. I don't know what would happen with it. But I don't think that Verdugo is taking legal action.
I don't think he would, or I don't think he is, but I mean, I've been hit in the back with the baseball before, and I'll tell you, it's not a very fun experience.
No, and some say, well, we have other teams where players throw things onto the field or onto the ice or some this, that, and the other. Why? Why? The Cubs, I believe, have a tradition, and believe it or not, I read somewhere supposedly all the way back to Hank Aaron like 50 years ago, where he hit a home run and somebody threw it back on the field. And you know what? If that was the start of what they did to the Cubs, is that based in racism 50 years ago? Was that somebody who was so upset about Hank Aaron coming up and, maybe it was when he was closing in on Babe Ruth's record? I don't know.
I mean, I would like to think no, but then again, it wouldn't shock me if it was based in racism.
Yeah, well, it's 50 years ago. It very well could be.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but it really would not shock me at all.
No.
Especially if it was to Hank Aaron. It wouldn't shock me at all, especially hearing all those stories of what he had to go through and what security measures they had to do the night that he broke Babe Ruth's record.
Yeah, it was just crazy. So I'll go back to what I say again. Anybody throws anything out there on the field, whether they hit anybody or not, I think they should at least be banned from the stadium for that season. If you intentionally threw something at a player, yeah, I think they made the right call. And if Verdugo wanted to, do something with it, take it further, he certainly could have. And let's see, I think I got a few remarks from Verdugo we can play here.
Obviously, we all seen it. A fan threw a ball at me. Hit me in my back. We thought it was pretty ironic that you said we talked about it earlier in the day as well. I come to expect it when I'm out here. The trash talking, the bringing up family members, the having everybody chant. Excuse my language, Verdugo and all these things. I'm used to that, man. I don't care. That's cool with me. But the moment somebody throws, as players, we're throwing balls in the stands to try to give people souvenirs, try to make little kids' days and things like that. And just to hear people saying throw it back, and then someone actually throw it back and felt like it was targeted towards me, it don't sit right with me.
Okay, there you go. He says, basically, this isn't right. This isn't the way we do things. I know also Alex Cora said some things, and let's see if we can hear what Alex said.
This is just a game. It's a game. This is not like life and death, It's not this like drama that people want. And the fact that people come to the ballpark and they decided to throw a baseball to one of the players, I was in shock that happened.
Once the ball hit Alex Verdugo, and Alex Cora said, okay, I'm bringing all my guys off the field. He brought them off the field, and umpire saying, you got to get back out there. I said, well, later on, somebody questioned me, said, were you concerned about their safety? He says, not really. He said, I was more concerned about getting Alex away from that situation. He said, for one reason, I know Alex, meaning Cora speaking of Verdugo. And he said, he didn't say he could be hot-headed, per se, and a very impassioned player. Hopefully all of the players are passionate. And I could see where if I got hit in the back, turning around and say, okay, who wasn't up there, and I'm coming to get you.
Hey, would you blame him? I mean, that hurts.
No. Players are subjected to a lot. Years ago, I was at a minor league game, and a fella I knew, but he wasn't a Fred, thank you. He was in the stands, and every time I'd go to the game, I'd see him over there. He was shouting at the first baseman, always just screaming, shouting, saying bad things about his performance, bad things about his family, etc. Well, one game, that player had enough, and he actually climbed up the stands and went after that fan. Yeah. And it wound up my associate, I'm going to call him a friend, that I knew who instigated this as far as I was concerned, went ahead and sued the player. Oh. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Let me try to pick a fight after 20 or 30 games and surprise when this guy comes up and jumps me. Anyway, I digress. The bottom line is there's no call for a lot of the crap that goes on in these games.
The way I look at it is fans that are like that, they're either drunks or they're like real life versions of Twitter's keyboard warriors, to where if you really got near the player, like face to face, they wouldn't be, singing the same tune.
No, and like I said, it's just sad, and I really hope that what are you going to do? You're going to put a net all the way around the stadium. They've already got one up halfway up. I guess maybe they can make it as tight as a steel mosquito mesh. But I don't think that's the way to go.
It's going to be like the NHL where they have glass all the way around.
There you go. And you can get up right and close when that. What do you do? Do you actually have once it comes up to the wall for a ball that's going to go out of the park? Anyway, I digress. But it gets silly. It gets crazy.
Yeah, fun fact: I believe the Twins actually had no hockey glass in the outfield at one time when they played at the Metrodome. I believe the Wild played there. Or at the time, the North Stars, I believe, played there. I wouldn't count on it, but I believe I have seen that before.
Let's see. On a lighter topic, let's talk about that Pirates game the other day. And this was very interesting, seeing that we were talking about the Pirates beating the Mets. And one of the situations where, let's see, the Mets, who is it? T1, I can't speak his name. Who's the pitcher? Brandon?
Taijuan Walker.
Okay. So Walker, anyway, he comes up there and he throws a pitch. I forget who was actually hit the ball. It kind of dribbled off from, I guess, off the home plate. And looks like it was going along third base line. And Walker comes over there, and I think he kind of brushes it out, trying to make it say, oh, it's a foul. So he brushes the ball out, and it runs over into the dugout. Well, at this point, the ump says, fair ball. And, oh, by the way, there are 3 men on base. You got 3 base runners. And suddenly that third base coach, his arms are waving fast. He is running those people in there, bam, 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 bam. And Walker and the other Mets can't get to the ball fast enough because he knocked it into the dugout. Oh, gosh.
Well, imagine getting 3 RBIs for a ball that went 15 feet.
That's exactly what it is. That had to hurt. Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
Just think about this play. If you haven't seen the video, everything about this is crazy. First of all, the ball was foul. Everybody could see that. And then the dude flips it, which he didn't need to do. And the umpire, I don't know what he was doing, says that it's fair. But I think Walker, maybe should have just, picked the ball up. And worst case, he could have challenged it if he ruled it fair. Just challenge it, and it should see clear as day that it was foul. I mean, that's what I saw. We ended up getting 3 runs out of it.
Yeah, and what was the first inning? They wound up with 6 runs, and it was 6-0. It was 6-0 till the third inning. It was 6-1. Fourth inning, Mets come back and get 3 more runs. Then they put on 3 more over the next, all the way through the ninth, and but the Pirates don't take another run, and it winds up being the Mets winning 7-6. Crazy game.
It's just a wild weekend in baseball. I mean, I just thought the Rays series was crazy, but just looking around the baseball world, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was. Do you want to say more about the Rays series?
Yeah, that was both an impressive series, but also an ugly series, because the pitching wasn't that great. And Saturday, they played a game, and I use that term loosely. Thank God I didn't have to see it. They put me to sleep. And what was impressive about it is, I've said it before, you have to know how to win ugly, because not every game is going to be pretty. And this whole series was pretty ugly, and they still found out a way to win it. And that's something that is important to know in the steps towards winning a championship. And even though the Rays do have holes, I can cover that more next week on the trade deadline show. They do have more holes, but that is something that, the younger guys like Franco and Walls, it will help them learn and benefit them when it comes to the bright lights of the postseason.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what happens with that too, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in our special Raise Up edition and future episode as well. Well, it's been an ugly week. I know you were saying some of that with the Rays and the Braves game, and I'm seeing a little bit more of the small ball out there too, so that's kind of nice. But geez, we do have something fun coming up, and that is the Field of Dreams game. That's going to be the Yankees, and they're going to be playing the Chicago White Sox out the middle of a cornfield somewhere in Iowa. Thanks to none other than Mr. Kevin Costner, and that movie from years ago. So they turned that actually into something, a moneymaker. To go to that game, you have to be from Iowa. There's a lottery, and I think that they're going to be, close. The registration period goes up through July 23rd. So if you're from Iowa, you can do that. And I believe, I'm trying to see when they actually.
I believe it's like August 13th.
Oh, see, yeah, I'm just looking for the winners will already be picked at random on August 1st. So, and the game is going to be held on Thursday, August 12th. So, anyway, if you're a dreamer, if you're looking for what baseball was in the cornfields, set aside that date. Should be fun. The Black Sox may emerge yet from the fields.
Man, the next thing we need is a Sandlot series.
Hey, all right, get Hercules out there. We'll be on our way.
You get that big fence out there. James Earl Jones just over the fence.
Yeah, and he was in both those movies,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Great stuff. Okay, man. Well, that's been another edition of Baseball Biz. You've been listening to Brandon No Way, who's also at Sports Blitz Pod on Tucker. You've been listening. Oh, my gosh. You've been listening to Brandon No Way, and he's there at Sports Blitz Pod on Twitter. And myself, Mark Carbett, you can find me at The Baseball Biz, also on Twitter, or any of all of the baseball podcast directories on podcast.google, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere.
Tucker.
Anyway, enough of that. Tucker. Yeah, Tucker. And we're on Tucker. Don't forget Tucker. All right, guys. Any other last words, Brandon?
I am not on Tucker. I am on Twitter.
Okay. Glad to hear it, brother. Okay, everybody. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll be talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to XtakeRuX for the music rocking forward.
Gotta get that Sandlot series going.